Brooklyn, a girl from the United States, found the light of Islam through a spiritual journey filled with searching and prayer. This journey led her to the truth she had been seeking, and with full conviction, she finally recited the Shahada and officially became a Muslimah. Through her social media platform, Brooklyn shares the story of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided her to Islam. She believes that the guidance she had been praying for was finally answered by the Creator, who revealed the ultimate truth to her. "To me, God has shown the truth. Allah has shown the truth," she expressed with deep gratitude.
Hi, my name is Brooklyn, and I'm a Muslim. I grew up being a Christian. I wasn't looking for any other religion. I didn't think there was any other religion, just to be honest with you. One thing that I always consistently prayed for, though, was guidance. I prayed that God would guide me no matter what I was doing, no matter the bad things I was doing, the good things I was doing. Just as long as I was praying for guidance. And I knew that I was going to be blessed one day. I knew that life was going to be tough for me for a while, but it was going to be really good for me one day. I just prayed that God would tell me when that time was, when that blessing was there, so I'd be able to appreciate it. That blessing is me being a Muslim. I was 25 years old when I heard about Islam and for the first time. I'm 26 now. Alhamdulillah, it's been a year since I've been a Muslim. And there's no turning back. Assalamu alaikum.
Since childhood, Brooklyn was raised in a Christian environment. However, deep in her heart, there was always a sense of unease that she couldn't ignore, especially regarding the concept of the Trinity. She felt that something didn't make sense, but she didn't know where to seek answers. Honestly, I wasn't interested in or aware of other religions. What I always asked for was guidance. No matter what I did, whether good or bad, I always prayed for guidance. Every time I prayed, it was a request for direction, she said. Brooklyn's request was not just words, but a sincere prayer that she offered in every situation. She felt that there was something she had yet to understand, but she believed that God would guide her to the truth. Brooklyn first learned about Islam at the age of 25. At first, she did not have a deep interest in the religion, but her curiosity began to grow when she heard her friends talking about Islam. One of the moments that surprised her was when she discovered that Muslims also believe in the story of Adam and Eve. All this time, she had thought that the story only existed in Christianity. However, what shocked her even more was how Islam explains the stories of the prophets in such detail and clarity. When I was still a Christian, I remember my friend telling me about Adam and Eve and how Muslims believe in it. I was shocked that Muslims had knowledge of the story of Adam and Eve. Then they explained in detail the stories of Prophet Moses, Noah, Jesus, and Abraham, she explained. Brooklyn became even more curious and started to learn more about Islam. She read about the lives of the prophets, studied Islamic teachings, and discovered that many of the principles she had always believed in were actually in line with Islam. Moreover, she realized that the laws in Islam actually also exist in Christianity. However, there was one major difference that stood out to her. Muslims follow these laws with full obedience, whereas in the Christian community she knew, these laws were not practiced with the same level of discipline. The laws in Islam actually also exist in Christianity, but the difference is that Muslims follow them. The Christians I know do not implement these laws the way Muslims do, she added. After a year of studying Islam, Brooklyn finally made a major decision in her life. With a firm heart, she recited the Shahada, acknowledging that there is no God but Allah, and that Prophet Muhammad is his messenger. At that moment, she felt a happiness that was difficult to put into words. A sense of peace and relief filled her heart. She realized that this was the answer she had been searching for all along. She then began practicing Islamic teachings with full sincerity, including wearing the hijab to cover her aura. For Brooklyn, Islam is not just a religion, but a perfect way of life that provides clear direction and purpose for humanity. I believe that God is one. He has no children and was not born from anyone. There is nothing like him. Islam is the perfect way of life. It is a guide for humanity from Allah, the creator of the universe. Within it lies guidance for life and the purpose of human creation, she stated with firm conviction. If there is one thing that made Brooklyn's happiness even more complete, it was when her mother also decided to embrace Islam. When her mother recited the Shahada, Brooklyn could not hold back her tears. She was deeply moved to see how Allah had granted guidance to her family. Her mother is now learning Islam with great enthusiasm, often asking questions and wanting to know more about the stories of the prophets and Islamic teachings. For Brooklyn, this is proof that Allah's guidance can come to anyone who sincerely seeks it. From her various life experiences, Brooklyn became even more convinced that worshiping the one true God is a human instinct. She encourages anyone who is still searching to keep praying and asking for guidance from God. If you feel that something is missing in your life, keep praying. Ask for guidance sincerely. Never be afraid to seek the truth. If your heart is pure, Allah will guide you to His light, she shared as a message to those who are still uncertain. Now, Brooklyn continues to share her story on social media, inspiring many people to learn more about Islam. For her, Islam is the most beautiful gift Allah has given her in her life, and she wants to share that beauty with the world. Amid the glittering life of Australia, where Islam is often misunderstood and seen as foreign, a young woman named Susan Carlin embarked on a journey she had never imagined before, a journey toward the light of Islam. Susan was born and raised in a non-Muslim family that held a skeptical view of religion, especially Islam. Since childhood, she grew up believing that Islam was a backward religion, full of restrictive rules and irrelevant to modern life. To young Susan, Islam was not something worth considering, let alone embracing. However, fate had other plans. At the age of 19, Susan's life began to change. Her great curiosity led her to study various religions, not because she was seeking the truth, but because she wanted to prove that Islam was indeed, as people said, outdated, harsh, and irrational. She started reading books about Islam, engaging in discussions with different people, and attending academic gatherings that explored world religions. However, the more she delved into it, the more she discovered something surprising. Islam was nothing like what she had always imagined. I felt like I had been slapped by reality, she recalled. Every question I thought would disprove Islam instead turned around and provided logical and beautiful answers. But there was one thing that haunted her mind. How would the people around her react if she chose Islam? Fear began to creep into her. She imagined her family being disappointed, her friends distancing themselves, and society judging her. A great turmoil raged within her. She wanted to deny the truth she had begun to realize, but her inner voice kept whispering, "This is what you've been searching for all along." Until one night, in the silence of her room, Susan made the biggest decision of her life. She recited the Shahada. Tears streamed down her face. She felt a peace she had never experienced before, but she also knew this was just the beginning of a journey full of challenges. Being a Muslim in Australia was not easy, especially for a woman from a non-Muslim background. When news of her decision spread, Susan faced an overwhelming storm. "I lost some friends. They thought I had chosen the wrong path," she said. "Some even asked how an intelligent woman like me could choose a religion that is perceived as oppressing women." However, Susan did not back down. She was confident in her decision and sought to prove that Islam is a religion that honors women, not oppresses them. Her journey in Islam deepened. She not only continued learning, but also began to engage in dawah. She wanted to show the true face of Islam, one of love, mercy, and justice. Year after year passed, and her influence continued to grow. She founded the television program Salam Cafe, a show that introduced Islam to the Australian public in a relaxed and inclusive way. The program became popular and was watched by both Muslims and non-Muslims. Susan also actively spoke at various forums, from churches to Jewish communities, from schools to business organizations. She wanted the world to see Islam from a different perspective, through the eyes of a woman who was once skeptical but had now become a part of Islam. Then, in 2004, Susan Carlin was awarded the title of Australian Muslim of the Year, surpassing many other prominent Muslim figures, including men. She not only received the award, but also won a prize of $2,000. However, without hesitation, she donated the entire amount to various charitable organizations, both Muslim and non-Muslim. Islam teaches us to give, not just to receive, she said with a warm smile. However, Susan's journey did not stop there. She still had to face a major challenge: the stigma that Islam and terrorism were inseparable. Every time a terrorist attack happens, Muslims around the world are viewed with suspicion, including me, she said. I have to keep explaining that Islam is not about violence, but about peace. Despite this, she remained steadfast. She knew that the truth did not need to be defended with hatred, but with good character. I believe that Islam is the true religion, she stated, and the world needs to realize how beautiful it is to be a Muslim. Today, Susan Carlin is not only an academic and activist, but also an inspiration to many Muslim women in Australia and around the world. From a girl who once doubted Islam to becoming one of the most influential Muslim figures, her story is proof that guidance can come from the most unexpected paths, and that the truth will always find its way, even if it must pass through a storm. May this story inspire us all to strengthen our faith in the beauty of Islam and continue worshiping with sincerity. Ameen, Ya Rabbal Alameen. Sarah Bacher, a former model, actress, fitness instructor, and feminist activist, once lived a glamorous life in South Beach, Miami, a place known for its luxury, freedom, and hedonistic lifestyle. Like many other American girls, she was obsessed with beauty, fashion, and how to appear attractive in the public eye. However, beneath all the glitz and glamour surrounding her, Bacher began to feel an indescribable emptiness. She felt like a prisoner of the beauty standards created by the fashion and entertainment industry. Every day she had to ensure she looked perfect, followed the latest trends, and maintained the image that many women admired. However, the more she tried to meet those standards, the more trapped she felt. Eventually, Bacher began searching for the meaning of life beyond the glamorous world that had confined her. Her search led her to various spiritual practices, meditation, and the exploration of different religions. However, the biggest turning point in her life came after the events of September 11th, 2001. The world was suddenly filled with discussions about Islam, and unfortunately, most of what she heard were negative stereotypes. As a feminist and activist, Bacher felt compelled to learn more about Islam, rather than simply accepting the narrative portrayed by the media. A chance moment changed everything. She came across the Holy Quran, something she had always seen as foreign and even dangerous to many in the West. At first, she was only drawn to its physical appearance, but as soon as she began reading it, her heart was deeply moved. Unlike any other text she had ever read, the Quran spoke directly to her soul. She felt as if it had been written specifically for her, providing answers to the questions that had long haunted her. Her spiritual journey did not stop there. Bacher eventually decided to embrace Islam, finding the peace she had been searching for. She recited the Shahada and began living as a Muslim woman. Shortly after, she married a Muslim man who supported her new path. One of the biggest steps she took after becoming a Muslim woman was wearing the hijab. That day was a historic moment for her. She bought a graceful long dress and a headscarf, then walked through the same streets where she had once strolled in revealing clothing, bikinis, shorts, or fashionable work attire. But this time she felt different. For the first time, she truly felt like a free woman. Bacher's journey to Islam did not stop at the hijab. She began considering wearing the niqab, face veil. At first, she asked her husband whether it was obligatory in Islam, and he explained that niqab was not a requirement. However, a year and a half later, Bacher felt that wearing the niqab was a calling from her heart. She wanted to do it for the sake of Allah, and for her own inner peace. When she finally wore the niqab, the outside world's reactions were mixed. The media buzzed with debates about the face veil, with many politicians and human rights activists labeling it as a form of oppression against women. However, for Bakr, such accusations were pure hypocrisy. She observed how the world loudly defended women's rights to dress minimally and freely, but denied their right to cover themselves if they chose to. She felt that true feminism should grant women the freedom to choose, not just the kind of freedom defined by Western culture. "I remain a feminist," Bakr said, "but a Muslim feminist who calls on other Muslim women to fulfill their responsibilities as wives, mothers, and individuals with values. I want to see Muslim women strong in their faith, raising their children to be righteous Muslims and spreading goodness in the world." Currently, Sarah Bakr is active as the communications director at the March for Justice, the assistant founder of the Global Sisters Network, and a producer at the same organization. She continues to advocate for the rights of Muslim women, inspiring many women, both those who have been Muslim for a long time and those who are new to Islam. For her, wearing the hijab and niqab is not a symbol of backwardness, but rather a symbol of true freedom, the freedom to choose who she is without external pressures. An American woman named Zan Kreis shares her spiritual journey of finding the light of Islam. She is not just an ordinary person. She does not come from a regular family background, but from a lineage of religious leaders. She is the daughter of a pastor in the country. Both her father and mother have pastoral ancestry from Norway and Germany. Her grandfather and great-grandfather were respected religious figures, and her family had long dedicated themselves to spreading Christian teachings. Since childhood, Zan was raised to be the successor of her family in teaching religion. Every Sunday, she stood in front of the congregation, taught Sunday school, and sang hymns with her melodious voice. She grew up with the firm belief that the religion her family followed was the only truth. The church was her second home, and God was the figure she worshipped through prayers and songs. However, as she grew older, more questions began to arise in her mind. If God is one, why is there the concept of the Trinity, which is difficult to understand? If Jesus is God, why does he pray to another God? If human sins have already been redeemed, why are people still punished for their mistakes? These questions continued to haunt her, but whenever she asked her family or church leaders, she always received vague answers. Zan eventually decided to leave her hometown to pursue higher education at a university. She chose to major in world religions, hoping to gain a deeper understanding of the beliefs held by different people. It was here for the first time that she began studying Islam. Initially, she took the class only because it was part of her curriculum, not out of interest. To her, Islam was a foreign religion, full of negative stereotypes she had often heard in Western media. However, over time, the more she studied Islam, the more she discovered something different. Islam emphasizes the absolute oneness of God, without the confusing concept of the Trinity. Islam teaches that every person is responsible for their own deeds without inherited sin. Islam provides rational explanations about life, the afterlife, and the relationship between humans and God. In fact, she was shocked when she read the Quran and found verses stating that Jesus is not God, but rather a prophet sent by Allah. A concept that made more sense to her compared to the Trinity she had always believed in. As she continued her studies at the graduate level, Zan interacted more frequently with students from various countries. Some of her friends were Muslims from the Middle East and Africa, including a man from Somalia who had extraordinary character. She noticed that her Muslim friends were very calm, humble, and full of love. They never imposed their beliefs on others, but the way they lived reflected something different, a real sense of peace. One of the conversations that changed her life happened when she asked her friend, "Why are you so sure that Islam is the true religion?" Her friend smiled and answered, "Because Islam is not just a religion, but also a way of life. God is one, neither begotten nor begetting. If you seek the truth, open your heart and ask for guidance from the true God. That answer echoed in her mind. That night, for the first time in her life, Zan prayed directly to God without any intermediary. "Oh God, if Islam is the truth, show me the right path." Days went by, and Zan's heart grew more certain. After a long inner struggle, finally in her second year of studies, Zan Christ decided to recite the Shahada. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Tears welled up in her eyes. She felt as though she had been born again, as if she had found something that had been lost in her life for a long time. However, this new journey was not without challenges. When her family found out that Zan had embraced Islam, a great anger erupted. "What have you done, Zan?" her father shouted. "You are the daughter of a pastor. You have betrayed our faith." Her mother cried, while her siblings looked at her with deep disappointment. "Father, I haven't betrayed anyone," Zan said, her voice trembling. "I am just following the truth I have found." But her father could not accept this reality. In a firm voice, he said, "If you stick to your decision, then you are no longer part of this family." That night, Zan left her home with a broken heart. She had lost her family, but she did not lose her faith in the God who had guided her. After embracing Islam, Zan did not stop learning. She deepened her understanding of the religion, learned Arabic, and became active in the Muslim community. Now Zan Christ has become a da'i spreading Islam in America. She frequently gives lectures and speeches at various universities, explaining Islam from a logical and rational perspective. In every lecture, she always strives to correct the misunderstandings about Islam that often arise in the West. She emphasizes that Islam is not a religion of terrorism, not a religion that oppresses, but a religion that brings light, peace, and truth to anyone who is willing to open their heart. The story of Zan Christ is proof that guidance can come to anyone. She was born into a family of pastors, grew up in a very religious environment, but when she sought the truth with an open heart, Allah showed her the way. Now she is no longer a Christian religious teacher, but a spreader of the light of Islam. She is no longer someone who questioned God, but someone who has found the true God. May this story inspire us all to deepen our understanding of Islam, to be more diligent in our worship, and to always be grateful for the guidance Allah has granted us. Ameen, O Lord of the worlds.